presentation update on the 2020 to 2020 Green Space Project, if you want to call it that. And Chris Bio, our Parks and Rec Commissioner, will be doing that. So I have the time to use this.
For the time, I will try to keep it in schedule as allotted. Basically, what we're going to go through, and what I'll go through this evening, is just kind of an update as to really kind of the past 11 months as it relates to open space, and kind of some of the things that have occurred over those 11 months between meetings, contact with potential landowners, etc. So, in order to start, I'll give a little bit of, just from a historical standpoint, kind of where we are from a population growth in the past 30 years, and kind of show how that's kind of played out in regards to growth. So back in 1990, population was just under 32,000. That obviously saw tremendous growth in the next 10 years, where it ballooned up to just over 38,000, so about a 20% growth. Then it's slowly has started to, I'll say, decrease, although it's still showing obviously increase. So between 2000 and 2010, about a 12% growth. Again, population up to just over 42,500. It was in that time, in 2005, halfway through that period, that cycle, that the open space referendum for the town was passed, $5.9 million. That bond will come due and be paid off. I believe it's in the middle of 2025 when that period, where that bond will actually be paid off for that period. Then final chart piece there on the chart is the last 10 years between 2010 through to 2022 or 20. Population now around 45,500. So again, showing still having a growth in population, but obviously not seeing that significant spike that was early in the 2000s. Again, it coincided with that original open space referendum. This is a map that's, I think there's one in here in the back wall. It's also on the town website. This is now up to date. We actually, Karen has uploaded this to the town website today. This is as current as today. The total amount of acreage that is within Webster that is dedicated as preserved lands. You can see in the chart on the key the different classifications for the various properties, but it totals out to be around 2,914 acres. There's a number of ways that obviously breaks down as you look at this map, different colors. From a town standpoint, the blue areas, which are town-owned parkland and open space, just over 1,100 acres. That breaks down from a park standpoint. There's actually 9 town parks. There's a lot of discussion on parks, parkland, park districts, etc. But from a designation standpoint, there's actually 9 town parks. We have 3 preserves within Webster, between White and Gosnell and 4 Mile Creek. And then from a park district standpoint, which are in this map shaded in red, there's around 134 park districts that are within Webster. So again, and then obviously it shows the county land, the tax incentive, purchase developments, etc. So that's all indicated on this map. And again, this is up to date. The last major change to this was in 2019. And the numbers, if you look at the 2019 map, a little different as some of the properties that were in the tax incentive open space have come off, but the town has acquired additional property. So some of those numbers are a little different. And, some have gone up, some have gone down. Another, what I'll call a metric or sort of a statistical from a relationship standpoint, using a resource like the National Recreation and Parks Association, they have several what I'll call metrics or sort of standards for parkland. In 2022, the metric was recommendation is 1,000 per 1,000 residents is around 9.9 acres. If you use that number from the previous or the earlier slide of 45,000 population, it comes out to be roughly around 445 acres of suggested parking. Currently, again, town has right around 1,106 acres of parkland open space. This just shows that the town has done a very good job in the past of acquiring property when it becomes available. The 1,100 acres. Again, as you look at sort of the metric from an NRPA standpoint, while the 9.9 acres, per 1,000 is a recommendation based on community needs and community sort of attributes, those numbers can be adjusted accordingly. So from a timeline standpoint, kind of where we're at and how we sort of got to this point. So back in June of 2021, the town sort of put together the two groups that were out there that were looking at open space, which is this is listed as the ad hoc open space group and the Friends of Webster Trail. Both had very similar interest in finding and identifying open space properties within Webster. So that started in June of 2021. After that initial sort of get to know you meeting and try to find out from an interest level where the groups were, that resulted in the town mailing out. There was around 84 parcels that were identified, totaling just about 2,300 acres. All of these parcels received a letter from the town, basically just introducing the concept of the town looking into this open space piece or program, and just trying to gauge some initial interest. So that was, again, summer of 21. Basically from September, after that letter was mailed out, through January of this past year, the groups spent a lot of time following up, reaching out, contacting landowners, etc. As a result of that, this past February, the result was really about 21 properties that were not interested as a result of that contact. 30 that still there was no interaction or contact, and then around 30 properties that had some possible interest. That segued into earlier this spring, where there were door-to-door visits of those no contact properties. Many of those were done by the supervisor, where it was actually door-to-door type of situation where spoke to either landowner or left information for contact. And that has resulted or brought us to really kind of an April-May timeframe where there has now been an identified list of properties, about 23 properties that would be desirable for this ad hoc Friends of Webster Trails property. That total is around, I believe it's around 650 acres. So obviously it brings you to the question of what's next and sort of what's the, what do you do with this information? As the data was collected, this info is all, let's say, the type of information that from a next step of the comprehensive plan that I know this town board has been aware of that needs to be updated. This is the type of information that will be useful as that plan sort of comes together and becomes part of this community. So that the information that has been done by this group, which has been very significant, the number of meetings and the number of contact and some reach outs that have been done over the 11 months has been significant and impressive. There's been a lot of work that's been put in by these two groups, especially that have really, started that process. And as the town goes into the comp plan, sense that the two were married together. Question?
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for a nice presentation.
Yeah, I have no questions. I just want to thank the groups that were involved in all of this, because I know we had a presentation early on when this first discussion began, and we were looking at possibly, we were mildly entertaining bringing in a consultant. And the work that's been done so far, I think would have cost the town, I don't remember the quote, but it was, I'm sure these were.
Well, and with Chris's presentation, the timeline started in June of '21. Actually, in February of 2021, the consultant presentation started at $250,000. And one of the concerns that the board had through the Q&A in that presentation is that the town would have to spend $250,000 to get to referendum, and that wouldn't guarantee that obviously the referendum vote by the citizens would be a thumbs up, and that was just a tough bill to consider on the if come. And so what was great is that the three entities, the ad hoc Green Space Committee, the Friends of Webster Trails, and Chris at the town, myself at the town, Matt representing really the town, Rita, we were able to do a lot of that work. And it's interesting because, and of course, I self-admittedly, I like going door to door. I don't know what that says about me, Charlie, but I get invited in for coffee. Sometimes later at night, I get invited in for things that aren't coffee. Iced tea, thank you. But to me, and I'm a data guy, what was really beneficial to the process of going door to door back in March was that we had some records of who owned these 10, 12, 20, 30 acre parcels, where it was John Smith. But when I knocked on the door, John Smith had passed away a couple of years ago. So now I'm talking to John Smith's widow, inviting me in for coffee and explaining how, the rawness of the death of his or her spouse, the adult kids, the land is kind of like representative of their father or mother. So they weren't ready to give up that land. But I really felt as though those interactions with those people, if we continue to keep a relationship with them, there may come a point in the next year, 2 or 3, where they are ready and they'll see the town in a good light. I'd like to think, unless I made a buffoon of myself, which is possible. And I will say that, and I can't thank this town board enough, that 2 weeks ago we sat here and Josh Artuzo, our Director of Community Development, put on a PowerPoint presentation that was work of a lot of people. Matt, you assisted on this, and it was really just to show the need for updating the comprehensive plan. And I think the town board, and you go back to tapes of that, said, let's go. And so we have taken the lead from the town board on that, and we're moving forward with updating that 2008 comprehensive plan. And some of the subcommittees and the efforts of that will go into it will be starting from a standstill. I have a meeting tomorrow with climate, green energy, whatever people, starting from a standstill. Open space will not be starting from a standstill. We are a year and a half ahead of the process because of these efforts. And that's really going to be helpful. And I can't wait, whether, Chris, we can put something in the July Webster Today that starts public engagement of what's important to the public via surveys, within the comprehensive plan update, which is such a big part of the comprehensive plan update, to get the 46,000 citizens, you know, as many of them as possible to interact with us and tell us what is important. I would like to think that the 46,000, you know, if we get enough, large enough sample for them, we'll see open space preservation as being an important thing. So I'm interested in starting that engagement. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, is that, you know, and I'm not going to try again, Bill. I said third time's a charm. You've already told me now twice you're not going to do, you did the comprehensive plan twice before. If you see Bill's only 27 years old, so look what it did to him. But
it did cost me to lose my hair.
Well, that's it. But, you know, it really, if you think about it, the technology that we have available now to get interaction with the community is so different and advanced than it was, you know, 15 years ago and the previous one back in 2000, that I'm just really excited to get that interaction with the community so the community can tell us, you know, what is the most important things, so we can get that comprehensive plan for 2023 or 24 to match what the community today is looking for, you know, today and for the next 20 years. That's all I got.
Can I say something? Because I've been around
Charles,
for
you
a while.
Well, let her rip.
Myself and Bill Abbott, and I think both of us have seen the different approaches, which I think at the time that they were enacted, and at the time the particular supervisors, and Supervisor Thomas and Supervisor Nesbitt, and now Supervisor Flaherty and the various town board members have acted with creativity and determination and really getting ahead and in front of open space. This effort goes back, Bill, at least a couple of decades. Kathy Thomas started it. She had some ideas which, you know, which have played out. Ron Nesbitt continued that and some great purchases and great ideas. And this administration is doing likewise. I think that the people of the town are very, very well served. I'm only saying this because I've seen it all, and I'm very, very impressed with how everybody's worked on this and how they've looked at it continually with new eyes and in getting public input, but also looking at it from every point of view, from the rights of the citizens and the expenditures and also the benefit of the entire community. So good job to everybody. This goes back to everybody who's been involved in the last 20 years for this open space program and the various programs that the town is undertaking.
Charlie, you know what I was, that I have found the last 2.5 years to be my learning curve. Every day I'm learning something new. What I've been told to be in this position for 15 years, to even learn something new every day. But I was not aware that the last referendum, which was first pitched, in 03, was really Kathy Thomas's administration was pushing for that referendum to governors, so to speak, to slow down development. Because from 90 at Bill, you're shaking your head, yes, you know that the amount of development that was going on from 90 to 2000, which is referenced in your growth chart there, was outpacing the town's ability to really manage it from a government standpoint, from an infrastructure, roads, all that, and want to put a great creative way to say, here's a way we can slow down development, is put out a referendum, and I think it was to buy 3,000 acres for $21 million, and that didn't pass. And politics might have come into it. I heard there was a late rush of door stuffers and whatever from the developers, because the developers got concerned that, well, holy cow, we're going to lose out on all this space. But it didn't pass. And it was tweaked and came back 2 years later in 05 as 1,000 acres approximately, not 3,000 acres, and it passed. So that was a good way to, you know, and what I was surprised about, it was a town-led Kathy Thomas administration led.
The town can't obviously promote a position during the referendum, which they did. The town got out in front of it and said, we think this is a good idea, we're your government, we're your representatives, and we're going to do all the work, then we're going to present it to you, you decide it's your call. That's what they did. Again, I think to me, the most impressive thing is how they got out in front of it. And there was always, in every administration, including yours, and there's always been this thought process of how can we make it better, how can we continue this?
You know, it's interesting, you can't, when you think about development or open space, I mean, the one thing that I've kind of learned that everybody that lives in Webster, man, woman, child, would all agree is that they don't want to see this town become 70,000 people. And, you know, when you look at it that way, taking lands that could be developed for housing or whatever, and getting them off the market to be forever open space is definitely a way to reduce population or population growth. Reality is, in this fluid world that we're in, the inflation that we're going through right now, we talk to developers every single day, and they're really kind of not moving forward with certain projects because the costs are just so prohibitive. So we might have a bit of a governor in the next year or so on development just from that. I mean, I guess, is that a silver lining to the highest inflation in 45 years? Yeah, I can't even put a positive spin on that one, Bill. But